All right, so welcome to the Bitcoin is nuking webinar. We've got 72 of our faithful, I would say, the market mastery warriors. Good news is, just as we decide to run this webinar, we have had a little bit of a bounce. So everyone's getting excited. Oh, God. So yeah, let's jump in and quickly have a look at the charts. Just going to share with you guys what I'm thinking at the moment. So obviously, like the major thing is we've fucking come down and we've hit the CME gap, which was like always a possibility that the CME gap was going to get hit. And to be honest, I was like looking at it and I was like, if we did have a breakdown, I was expecting maybe to sweep this low and then do something like this. Um, And just because like everything that's going on with like macro and everything like that at the moment it's much more geared towards us being bullish, right? Because we've been going through a very bearish macro period and charts managed to pump pretty nicely by itself, even though we've been in really heavy quantitative tightening and they're about to start easing that up. Rates have been super high. They're only just starting to ease up rates now. Obviously, there's so many amazingly fundamental bullish things happening for Bitcoin, like Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. There's like, I think like fucking 12 pushing up towards like 18 different states in the US that all have like bills potentially running through their Senate and everything like that, and House of Representatives get passed to build their own strategic reserves. So it does feel like we're on the cusp of so many different new levels of demand in this market that we haven't seen before, like really heavy institutional demand. And then, you got like, the founder of Cantor Fitzgerald, Howard Lutnick, who's just been named as, who I should say is one of the biggest Bitcoin bulls on the planet, has just been named to run the Sovereign Wealth Fund. So there's been so many amazingly bullish things. That was one of the things we sort of taking a bit of notice up here. Like maybe this is distribution because, we were having all this crazy bullish stuff happening, but the market wasn't really taking off and really pumping. So, potentially that meant that they needed to get a bit of a rollover and then rebuild from there. Now, the one place that this reminds me of this current pullback, so, we've broken out, we're having a pullback to previous year value area high, and we're hitting a pretty big CME gap. Now, I really want to see where this daily closes. If we can close back on top of this previous year value area high, that could be a really nice signal for, okay, maybe this level is going to hold. And if it does, I think we remain a lot more bullish going into the future. And, we can get like, let's just say that this ends up closing a candle that looks like this, right? You can get a Morningstar reversal and off the top of the previous year value area high, reclaim this week here. Maybe then you have a bit of a pullback and it comes back down after that, and then you end up reclaiming that, and then you're back into the developing value area low over the next couple of weeks, and we're looking really strong again. At the end of the day, realistically, it's all about reclaiming this 91K area. Like, I think that's probably going to be the easiest long we'll ever have in our entire fucking careers, because eventually this is going to reclaim the low here, right? Like, I know a lot of people like talking about, oh, it's over, all this kind of shit. Bitcoin does this all the time. Like, it has a consolidation, has a pump, comes back, retests the consolidation, bounces off it, and then runs, right? The only thing that's got me a bit worried at the moment is how much damage are these tariffs going to do to the wider market? Does this send us into a little bit of a little bit of a tailspin for the next few months until they end up lowering rates enough, until and then maybe they start a little bit of there's so many different types of quantitative easing, but they start injecting a whole heap more capital into the economy because the stock market starts to crash, and I think unemployment's going to start to head up pretty quickly as well, because they're laying off so many government employees through the Doge program, right? So that's something to also think about. So I think there's going to have to be policy changes to that, which are all beneficial for markets going upside. So it's like the only question for me is like, how deep do we go first? We're going to come all the way back down to this previous year VWAP, which is around 67, 68. Just let me check the other chart to make sure it's the same. It's about pretty similar to the CME chart. So yeah, do we end up coming down into the 60s? Do we just bounce off 73? Do we end up all of a sudden just showing some strength finally, and we end up getting a close tomorrow morning above the previous year value high and bounce off that? Because that would be obviously the best outcome in my opinion. For just general bullishness and continuation of having a really strong uptrend. A lot of things have fully round tripped the Trump pump. When this was, yeah. So MicroStrategy now fully round trip the Trump pump. Tesla coming in now. This is the gap from Trump winning the election as well. So like a lot of things have round tripped. When was this? I think back here. So the Amazon didn't leave a gap, but there is a bit of a gap back here. Maybe it wants to come back and fill that eventually. That'll be, we'll have to keep our eye on that one. But a lot of different things have come back and basically fully round tripped the entire Trump pump. So yeah, BTC, yeah, we're pretty much there as well. So 6th of November, the 5th was this candle here, which is pretty much 69K. So a little bit of a way still to go, like to get down there to finish off. And that would sort of be, a level where the VWAP was at for, the value area high was at for a long time during the last year. But I think, around this 71 area, I think is probably the most likely place that we find a reversal. If we don't bounce like right now, if we're not like watching the bottom right now with this push and, end up doing something like this, who knows with this low, but I kind of feel like we might need a massive capitulation, like something like this that we had with that really big, I'll change across this chart, it's a bit easier to look at, where we had like a huge wick left behind and a massive capitulation. Like this was one day, 15%. We haven't really had that. It's been a little bit more of like a controlled, like every day has just been like 5%. This had a bit of a flash crash down to like 6%, but ended up closing on like 3% down, 5%. And then, we had a day sideways, now it's been pushed down to 7%, but now it's, sitting at 5% again. So we haven't really had like that big climax. And I think that's why I sort of messed this one up a little bit, trying to relong, because I felt like we had a couple of those quick, sweeps of key levels and reclaims that looked like they were nice setups to reverse, but the selling pressure obviously just way too strong. And sometimes I don't really play them too well. Obviously this ended up being a distribution pattern in the end, but this could have easily just curled up and this would have just been the spring, right? So it was a bit of touch and go for that, but the obvious tell was when we finally broke below the developing yearly VWAP on the lower time frames. You can see we ended up having like a perfect retest and rejection here. For me, just like going over and analyzing why I traded this last week so poorly, I'm just looking at it and like all the nice like easy short setups happened like in the middle of the night for us, and also like the bearish news, like 1 a.m. it comes out that Bybit's been hacked. Now we're sort of like down here. And then, we had obviously 2 a.m. comes out, 1 a.m. again comes out, which is also the New York Open a couple of times as well, that we have bearish news about, okay, tariffs are going back on. And then we look up recovering again, and then bang, we've got another set of tariffs. And it's like, okay. And now we're sort of having that final sort of capitulation. So there's been a bit of chatter about potentially this being, a 3 waves down, and it's definitely potentially there as well. So we could be maybe at that point or getting pretty close at the moment. that deepening channel, 3 pushes to a low type thing, with obvious like massively being oversold at the moment on all time frames. The 4 hours being quite oversold, and that's the 3-wave bull div, which is a very like deep bull div as well. Like usually bull divs are like a lot more flat. Like if this kind of closed, it's more usually a lot closer to a double bottom than like so steep like that. That's more like we're just continuing a big sell off. But yeah, like this can definitely play out. So it's something to keep our eye on. So if this does play out, it's going to end up being chopping around for a little bit. Maybe we get one more sweep or something like that, and then it'll pop out of here. Right, and then probably get a retest and then finally push. So that's generally what they end up looking like, something like that, or it could end up playing a bit more bullish and going, like that as well. So just keep your eye on. But the key to play this trade is breaking of this downtrend through here. I really thought this morning that this was going to be the bottom when we got the 4 hour. I loaded up pretty heavily here, so got wrecked pretty hard on that, to be honest. But that's kind of the game. This was a really nice setup for a bottom. And maybe that's why it got wrecked so hard, because too many people loaded up on this pin bar. Because this was such a nice level for it to reverse off, because we've got the 1.272 with the 0.618 here. So yeah, one other thing that I was looking at as well was, on this move here, I have measured this fib level here from this last low before the impulse started. If I want to take it all the way down to, the bottom of the beginning, this is a bit of a choppy uptrend. That lines up pretty much perfectly with the previous high, right? Which is, around that 74 level. Right. So I don't know if you guys remember from ages ago, I said this was a final block order boss. Final boss order block. So when we finally break out of that, that's when the market's going to pump, and maybe we're going to come back and revisit that, because there is this huge imbalance here as well. Right. So, imbalance, FVG, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot overlapping. So, you've got this order block from back here, obviously really key, important high. It's the last high, pre-breakout type thing. Could easily end up coming back, tagging that 0.618 level as well. And then not far below that, we've got the 69K, which is the 2021 all-time high also. So, yeah, and then you've got the order block underneath here as well, which, potentially, if it's a little bit more bearish, wants to come down. So there's a lot in this level as well throughout here, from basically 74 to 68. I'd love to see, maybe like over the weekend or something like that, we get a candle that ends up looking like this and just has like a really big deep wick, and it's just like super obvious that that was the low. You get something that's like that. Kind of like what this one was back here. Like, this was a nasty bleed out. End up being about 30% if you get the very top of the wick, like 30%, pretty much straight down. How many days was it? Let me just measure that properly. Across 7 days, it was a really nasty capitulation, swept the whole range low. But then, yeah, obviously, we bounced off the value area low pretty aggressively. So, we could end up maybe putting in a candle like that today if we get a close back up here, or even, like a Morningstar reversal close back above 87, could have that type of effect. But I kind of feel like we might still be on for the final capitulation. And yeah, I think, if that does happen, this area back here, on a couple of videos ago, I did talk about like that's probably like worst case scenario from when we're still back up here, that we end up dumping all the way back down to here. I think you would find a lot of buying in this level through here. My only issue is going that deep. I'd love to see the 1.272 hold, because then, we're sort of just ping-ponged between the 1.618 and the 1.272, and just bouncing off those macro levels. If we can hold by this previous year value area high, we're just in a much better position to then reclaim this low here, which is pretty much 92K, right? without having to put through a big accumulation period. I think like if the market does end up puking, goes all the way down here, then when it finally bounces, we're going to reject off the previous year value area high probably, and then maybe we end up putting in a big accumulation range and it ends up looking something like this back here, which wasn't the funnest, just that chop, that sideways chop, it wasn't too bad to trade, but it just just felt like it just went forever. Luckily, while this was happening, I was on holidays traveling fucking through Europe. So I was just trading it off my phone. Every time we got like a nice pin bar or something like this, SFP, I just heavily long it. But it was, especially at this part through here, was pretty draining and dry for a fair amount of time. How long did that go for? Like 23 days. So it was like the final bleed out. Everyone got sick of it, and then bang, it finally takes off. So that would kind of suck to have that kind of price action, like as deep into the bull run as what we are right now. But that was also after a 51% pullback, whereas this has only been a 28%. If we come all the way back here, it's like a 35% pullback, which isn't really that bad, to be honest. Like we've seen plenty of those over the years. So those is really like the main thing I'm looking at. Like, can we hold this previous year value area high tonight? Like, does the market end up pushing back up? Was the whole reason we came down here just to fill this gap, or maybe in the entire marketplace feels like we're about to go into a bear market because of these tariffs that are getting put on, and it's not going to reverse this dump until we get something from the Federal Reserve or we get something from Trump, to minimize the damage, and then it rebuilds a new narrative and breathes a bit of life back into the market. But I think one thing definitely need to be watching is just like the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 at the moment. NASDAQ has obviously just swept a really key level here, and we're coming up to the 200 developing moving average, right? So if we go back to the bear markets, right, back in 2022, basically, we're staying above the 200 moving average. This was the COVID dump. And then, this was a little bit of a mini bear market that we had for about 3 months in 2018. This is the taper tantrum. This is what they call this. And it's basically the market started puking and selling off because they tried to move back to quantitative tightening. But you can see pretty much, other than that, the market doesn't spend too much time below the 200 daily moving average. And we had obviously the COVID pump, the COVID capitulation. Then we had, the massive pump from the unbelievable amounts of funding that they pumped into the market. And then, eventually we put in the top. They decided to move back to quantitative tightening. And then we went into that bear market, which lasted for an entire year of the whole of 2022. Right. And then we didn't really get out of the bear market until we flipped back above the 200-day moving average. And you can see in here, right, it's a really nice Morningstar reversal. This is the kind of setup that I love to see, that shows that there's just heaps of strength in the market here. So roll over, nice SFP through here, sweep the entire range low. And then, you get that really strong candle closing up here a long way above the down candle of the 3-candle pattern, right? And obviously there was a heap of strength because we just absolutely fucking mooned nonstop after that, right? Next time we came back to the 200-day daily moving average, right? We had TD9, another Morningstar reversal off that, reclaim the falling wedge here, and end up pushing the other side and just absolutely sent again after that. Right, 2 more tests here. We bounced off it. We're coming up pretty close to this. So, we may be overnight if this ends up capitulating again. We may be overnight. We could tag it. But let's see. Maybe this is all we get. We get a swing failure pattern here, and then we end up pumping in New York tonight, and just rotates back to the range high, because this has been very rotational, right? Just through here, right? Just ping-ponging between these 2 levels, kind of. So it could easily continue to do that, and we're at the range low right now and just swept the low. So let's see what ends up happening in the NASDAQ tonight. I think it'll be a bit of a tell, because if this breaks down and then we start trading under the 200 daily moving average next week, it could be a really bad sign that we're heading into a bit more of a longer term correction. Maybe, you'll hear a lot more like bear market talk pick up, that's for sure. And then it might take something like the Federal Reserve coming out and talking about ending quantitative tightening, or talking about lowering interest rates faster. And you probably have Donald Trump starting to put a lot of pressure on Jerome Powell to drop interest rates, and we'll just have to see how that all plays out. So yeah, questions. Let's have a look. How the fuck are so many crypto commentators scared we're moving to a bear market? I think it's just because like a lot of them just don't understand economics really at all. Right, let's see. Yeah, so this is the ISM, right? And Raoul Powell and Julian Brittle have been talking about this a lot recently, because it's a really good measure for picking at like where we are in the bull market, where we are in the business cycle. It's really good at showing us where we are in the business cycle. And obviously you can see we've been in pretty much an accumulation period, and the market topped back here in March 2021. Right, so we're going to March 2021 was like around here on the stock market. If we go and have a look on BTC, it was right in this high, right? And then obviously, we end up pushing up again after that a little bit later. But it is a really good sign, because it's a bit of a leading indicator. So that obviously it tops before. It's not a good topping signal, but it's a good signal to tell us, when the market is actually heating up, right? So because this is basically like an indication of how much manufacturing activity is going on, how many orders manufacturing companies basically taking in to make stuff. So it's a good signal of like how much money flow is happening in the economy, how much people are spending on things, and how much activity is happening. And when it starts to move above 50, which we just did, the last print for January was basically 50.1 or 51. That's pretty much a trigger for us to move back into growth, because when you're below 50 on here, basically you're in the negative, right? And things are going backwards. When you're above 50, it shows that we're growing. So this obviously peaked out towards the start of the end of our bull run, and then obviously it's been in a really strong downtrend, going into a massive accumulation since then, and then it's getting to take off. But I'll just show you one thing here. This is basically altcoins versus BTC with the ISM overlaid on it, right? And it matches up very, very closely. And the reason why is because when companies are making more money, they spend more on employees, people get raises, there's just general monetary flow, business owners are making more money, and just there's more money thicker in the economy, and people just feel richer, right? And when that happens, people have more spare capital to spend on stuff. So it's like financial conditions are almost like a lot looser, and people can spend more money on stuff and they don't feel the pinch as much. So you can spend more money on things like altcoins and gambling and stuff like that, and more speculative assets, and you see more money flow into risk assets a lot more, and things like NFTs and stuff like that pop off. So this is one of the things I've been talking about for a while. Like, ISM has been really struggling for a long time. We've been in quantitative tightening for a long time. I'll get that chart up and show you right now. right? So, this topped out 2nd of May 2022, and they basically pulled out about $2 trillion, like so it peaked out at around 9 trill. And it's down at 6.7. So yeah, a bit more, just like $2.2 trillion being taken out of the economy in the last, I mean, that's almost coming into two and a bit years now, right? So everything flows a lot better in terms of risk assets when this is pushing and moving to the upside, which is, where we're like, this will come down and it will stabilize for a little bit. And then it will start to eventually start to push up again over the next few years. So that just makes everybody's life in sort of the risk asset space a lot easier because you have that tailwind instead of, a massive headwind. This is another one, Julian's charts I really like, just wanted to share with you guys. Global M2, right? And this was obviously in the last cycle. So obviously Trump won the 2016 election. Right, you're going into a downtrend in 2016 election. Same as 2020, which is obviously, 2024, 2025 is our red line. And we have started to take off, right? So I'll give you a bit of a look on my chart. This one here. So obviously BTC taking a massive dump here. We're kind of just following this, and it's a bit overdue. Like if you measure from high to high here, it's about 77 days. And then the low is about 98 days. So, potentially, if, it's never going to be like an exact match, but, this was one of the speculations we had talked about a fair bit. This pullback here and eventually, BTC having that rollover. And that's why a lot of people were talking about like that CME gap getting filled and everything like that. Unfortunately, just didn't really trade it that well to be able to capture this downside, because it would have been a great sell and buyback with a 18% down move in such a quick succession. But sometimes you just don't catch things. But I just feel like with this heading back up, we're going to watch the DXY as well because it has bounced out of here. So I think, we are coming back up on DXY into this imbalance here. Right, so, you'll have everyone talking about this head and shoulders pattern here soon. But basically, what we want to see on the DXY here is come up into here and then roll back over and get back down towards the bottom end of this range. If that does happen, then it does breathe a lot of new life back into BTC. So yeah, that's probably one of the main things for us to be watching for here. If the DXY starts pushing up here, we start having a lot more bigger collapse, market wide, NASDAQ starts dropping underneath here, then, we're trading pretty significantly underneath 200-day moving average, then yeah, for sure. Now we can start talking about much longer requirements for Bitcoin to go into an accumulation range, right? I still think like no matter what happens here, there eventually is going to be a really strong bounce. Like if it ends up closing above this previous year value area high, probably get a bounce up here. This is just, let's say it does roll over and this is the end of the cycle. We'll probably get a bounce up here and then it will end up rolling over. And then you've got, your ultimate high here, right? And then you got your lower high and then lower high, right? Lower low. And then, that's it. At the moment, like we've kind of just pumped, consolidated sideways, put in a bit of a, up thrust through here, SFP, and then just like had a big dump off. I think worst case scenario, we'll get some sort of a, bear flag or something like that play out here, like a rising wedge, which could then, give opportunity to get out of positions and take profit. Like let's just say it comes up and starts to reject really badly off 90K. That could be an opportunity to get out. If you didn't get out through here and you're wondering, okay, is this the end of the bull market? There will be like another more obvious, the only thing that we wouldn't want to see is sometimes you do get this sort of stuff. But I feel like after a massive sell-off like that, unless, the stock market is nuking and we're having like really hectic trade wars and things just aren't going well economically. But I kind of feel like maybe the market's just overreacting a little bit to the tariff news, and maybe, there's a couple of market makers that wanted to make a bit of money back after the Bybit hack, and they also wanted to get this CME gap filled before continuing on. And let's be honest, like a pullback to the previous high on Bitcoin isn't really that out of character either. Like if we go and have a look, back to the last couple of cycles, like we didn't really have that in we didn't really have that back here. And this is what I was kind of expecting. Like Trump gets in, we end up having really super bullish news. We kind of have like a massive run like this where we didn't really come back and retest the previous highs as much. But if we come back and we look back at the 2017 run, basically like all of these rallies, they just came back and retested the previous high, right? And then pushed on. There's only a few like this one that didn't. There's only a couple of them that didn't in this run up, So like this one came back and re-hit that previous high, a little bit of a gap up from this one. But there were a lot of like retests of like all the long accumulation ranges, like this one and this one that were like based out for a long time. Most of them came back and were hit. So you could kind of compare the sell-off we're having at the moment, like similarly to this one, like 7-day, 35% move down, ended up being a total 40% drop over 14 days to retest the previous high, right? That was a pretty long 61 days. Obviously, it's getting more and more drawn out. And that's just because, we're a much higher market cap asset, right? So that's always going to happen. All right. Let's come back into questions. Seasonality way off at the moment. Yeah, let's get that up. Yes, apart from 2014, this has been the worst February we've ever had. And in saying that, like we've only ever had 1, 2, 3 bad Februaries. So yeah, it's a bit interesting because usually, if you go back to March lately has been pretty good, but previously March was pretty nasty, and so was January for a long time as well. But yeah, let's just see how this ends up playing out. But I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up having a green March and April after this big sell-off. Yeah, seasonality definitely way off at the moment. Yeah, so T-Mac said US markets crashing as likely investors looking to reshuffle their capital into positions more favorable to Trump's policies. Coin down 40% from the highs. Any tech stocks? I mean, can't really talk about tech stocks too much, like individual or anything like that. But I mean, like Amazon 13% off the highs. This one is probably, Tesla 42% from the highs. Like it's a big pump and dump just there. Obviously, Palantir, huge sell off as well on that one. So basically, anything that had like pumped recently has had pretty nasty sell offs. Like Nvidia doesn't look great here either, to be honest. Google back at range. Oh, that's Microsoft. Sorry, back at range lows. Google looking pretty nasty, 18%. So yeah, like I just like to point out that it's not just Bitcoin that's been dumping off. Like, for Google to drop, 10% in a week, it's a bit. It's definitely a bit, but it's not super uncommon. Like, and this is a little bit longer. That was 2 weeks, 14%. This is a bit of a nasty one as well. That's another 2 weeks, 11, 12%. But like we do have these sell-offs, like the big tech stocks, and the Nasdaq sells off, and everyone's in like massive fear, and it sounds like it's the end of the world, and then it just bounces again. It's just another time. It's another time. So I think you just have to be really careful until we get like that second lower high. Even on this, right, you get like a lower high here and then roll over. It breaks below there. We start trading below the 200 daily moving average. So it's really like, if you're going to be like calling, okay, the market cycle top is in, like you really kind of need like something like that second high to sort of be rolling over and locking in that downtrend. Like obviously, this is now a downtrend because we had like, but that's sort of like we've left this range, but like on the macro position of the like entire chart, I just think like, we had one pump and pullback. It's a little early to just be like, yeah, okay, that's definitely done. Yeah. Because this could easily just go like this, bing, and then take off again. Like, we've seen Bitcoin do that so many times. Just need something to play out in our favor, right? But I wouldn't be surprised. If this does end up being, the all-time high for this cycle, gets put in, come down here, bounce off that. We end up chopping around for a little while. It does have a really strong rally. Does a fake out through here. And then it does something like that. And then if we do something like that, then I'd be like, yeah, that looks like the fucking top is actually in. And we just ended up missing it. It would be a really strange time for this to top, because it pretty much that like basically topped on the day Trump came into being inaugurated. I just think there's too much bullish stuff in the pipeline coming through that they're going to be able to do to pump markets over the next 4 years, get Bitcoin going again over the next 4 years. I'm just not buying it that it's over. Not so. K Trades asked, after last cycle, the large pullback, did the main alts that have pumped early in the cycle make new highs? Some of them did, and some of them didn't. So it's a bit tough. I think you're just gonna have to watch, and have a look like at each coin. You know what I mean? And see exactly what those projects were actually doing throughout the cycle, and if they're just running purely off narrative, they might not pump again. But if they were pumping because it actually had something going on, then yeah, probably they're going to get another run again. So like for example, last time Solana ended up pumping really hard, and then it had a really big pullback with everything when we had that 51% pullback, and then it pumped really aggressively again. So it's really difficult. I think like the lower cap ones, like Sui, for example, probably will pump really hard again, kind of like what Solana did last cycle. But like a lot of meme coins and stuff like that, I probably think that they're most likely dead, and it'll just be like a new meme coin or something else in that space. So it can be a bit tough to try and pick the ones and just say, oh, everything that's pumped isn't going to pump again. I think it's just too broad to make a statement like that. So you're going to have to look into individual projects, have a look at them, their market cap, versus the price, and how much has been dumped. And, it just depends. Like, do we go into an accumulation period or not? One of the things I did want to point out, I don't think I ended up pointing it out. If I did, I'm just going to repeat myself anyway, because I think it's important anyway. But, we have the previous year value area high here and the CME gap. I feel like it's quite similar to this back here. like in the course and everything like that, we talked about coming back to previous year value area high and how, we ended up bouncing off that really nicely through here. And, this was obviously a great example of, one of the best trades that the long-term VWAP has ever given, right? You had so many opportunities to take a trade off it. And then, we make this nice little triangle set up here and then break out of that. And we're finally sort of flipping back into a bullish narrative. But the key was obviously, once again, reclaiming this range low, which is what's going to happen this time. Like, imagine that this is 90K through here, right? So this is our range here. This is 90K. Once we reclaim that range low of 90K, like that's going to be when everything goes full on, it's game time again now. So that would be the level that I'd be watching for to get reclaimed. Like, is the market cycle over or not? It basically comes down to when we come back to test 92. If it does get up there, I think it will. If we come back up to test 92K, does it reject really aggressively off here, or do we reclaim that and start to put in bullish market structure and then pump again, right? So obviously reclaiming range low and then getting over that as well. This little high here will be really significant. I think once we're back above this level here, which is 98K, 100K, get back above 100K after getting rejected off it like this, I think it'll be game over. And obviously the next level up is 137, which is where that macro fib level is. Yeah, so Nomad asked, do you feel the 4-year cycle theory is cooked now since we're so correlated to trade fund markets? Like, if you're looking at monetary flows, right? If you're looking at things like the ISM, and the reason why I sort of talk about ISM, like this is a really good illustration. When the ISM goes back above 50, which is when it goes back into growth again for the first time, like look at the positioning of that, like where we were in the market cycle. So like obviously, the market got crazy after the ISM went above 50. That was back in 2013 though, or the end of 2012. And then this one was during that consolidation we were just looking at before, and Bitcoin started 2016. And then obviously, that leads into this huge back end rally that we had across the rest of 2016, 2017. And then, last cycle, we had the ISM go back above 50 pretty much at the same time as we had the halving. So halving was like right then as well, that point in 2020. And then, we just had the ISM just tick above 50 now, back through here. And so, like, I just want you guys to think about, like, go and have a look at the charts when we were back here, and like think about if you were trading back then. I know a lot of the guys in the group are like back here, like where were altcoins when just after the COVID dump, sorry, where just after we had the COVID dump, where were altcoins? Like in 2016, where were altcoins back here? Especially versus Bitcoin, they absolutely destroyed. They were at the lows. And nothing was really running with Bitcoin, and we're almost in the exactly the same position now. Like it's just the majors that have done really well, and it's the same in the stock market. Like it's pretty much just like the Magnificent Seven. Nvidia has been dragging the entire market up and everything like that with the AI boom, and all that's been happening. It's sort of the same in crypto. Like it's Bitcoin and it's the other major coins that have done really well and dragged everything up with it. So if you compare where we're coming previous times and previous cycles in the chart, what was actually happening with BTC, where the BTC price was at, and what the altcoin prices were at back then, we're actually a lot more advanced in our cycle this time in terms of price, how high price is compared to the lows. But altcoins are still kind of in the same place. And I think that Bitcoin is only as high as it is now because it's had massive amounts of real world actual adoption. It's becoming an institutional grade asset. Now obviously all the governments are trying to get involved in it as well. And so this growth has been all natural growth. We haven't had any free growth from, the fucking Federal Reserve's been taking money, taking $2.2 trillion out of the economy. The ISM has been in a bear market since pretty much March 2021. So like we've had, because Bitcoin typically mainly moves, like you look at all the previous cycles, it mainly moves off, yes, the halving is a factor because it has the supply side dynamic to it, but then also the rest of it is the rest of the economy has been moving in 4-year cycles as well, with presidential cycles, because the 2008 global financial crisis reset the entire debt cycle, right? And so basically what happened from there is everything was just running on 4-year debt cycles, and so the business cycle was matching up perfectly with the 4 years. But since COVID now, it's thrown that out, and we've had to have a much longer downward period. Like we've been in quantitative tightening for 2.5 years now, which is what I showed you guys. What I showed you guys here, right? They've been taking $2.2 trillion out of the economy in the last 2.5 years, right? So like that has shaken things up massively. And so I am kind of thinking that, potentially we're not going to match up perfectly with the 4-year cycle anymore. And things are going to change a little bit. Let me just, and that's really starting to shine through at the moment. And I think mainly it's because of just all the macro factors. Like we were kind of really nicely following this. Now you can see it was kind of deviated from the previous cycle sort of runs here. So we'll just have to wait and see how this ends up playing out. But at the moment, if we look on the weekly time frame, we've just rejected off the 1.618, and potentially now we're going to bounce off the 1.272. If to see, maybe we come back to the 1, bounce off that, reclaim, run again, and we're just going to end up continuing to ping pong through these major key fib levels, kind of the same as what we did last time. But we just haven't had this big run up gap yet from the previous all-time high. I guess it was from here. We kind of got this part of the run before this move. So we got kind of like this part of the run to the previous all-time high. That came in here. And then we got like that second move up from here to here. It's sort of equal to Bitcoin running from 20K to 30K last cycle. And now we've had a pullback to 23. If you're going to compare it to last cycle, just to put things into context, and maybe it comes back all the way and hits 20K again, and then we end up running from that. So obviously a bit weaker takeoff, but we have run into some massive headwinds economically with the tariff wars that have started to pick up. And Trump and Elon all did talk about potentially there is going to be some pain at the start, and so we're starting to see that pain right now. It's just like how deep is it going to go? How long is the pain going to go on for before we start to see the effects of this global monetary easing, basically? How long until they start to drop rates and start to pull those levers that they have? There's a lot of levers for them to pull to save the stock market if they want to, and get things going back up, and stimulate the economy. And things will react really quickly to that, as we have seen many times. As soon as they decide to pull on any of these levers, I can't remember when it was. I think it might have been back here, was when we had the banking crisis, March 2023, potentially. Maybe it was, it was definitely early in the year, that banking crisis. So it must have been back here. And then, the Federal Reserve came out and said, we're going to support the banks. We're going to fund them all and buy the bonds back at market price instead of at fair values, not market price. So they're going to, at purchase price, they're going to pay full value for the bonds instead of, basically covering any losses that any of the banks had, which is basically like they're going to pump millions of dollars or billions of dollars into the marketplace, which is where this little pump came from. That was, when all the banks started getting a bit of a run on them, and how much they put in, like another 500 billion or something like that, just to shore up the banking system. And that's what that little bump there is. So, this is going to end, like, this is probably one of the biggest things. Like when you think about quantitative tightening. Just imagine like you got two massive hands, which are the Federal Reserve, and they're just squeezing the throat of the markets. And they're about to let go and let the markets breathe properly again. So that would just be like really bullish, just quantitative easing ending, and then starting to remove interest rates and stuff like that. So that's why I feel like, to go full circle and go back to your question about the 4-year cycle. I feel like potentially this is going to end up being a much longer cycle. Where's my chart gone? This is going to end up being a much longer cycle, and potentially, we're going to spend more time doing longer consolidations like what we did back here and back here. We might have another one of these. This has already been a long consolidation, 100 days. This one back here was 224. That was huge consolidation. And this was like, a pretty long consolidation as well back here, 217 days. So we've been much more of a sideways market this cycle. From that's pretty much 2 full years of sideways there. This could easily continue to chop sideways like what we did back here until we start to get really bullish themes start to play out, and later on in the year, and we actually start to get a tailwind for once, because we've managed to get all the way up to 100K with basically walking into a fucking hurricane. So once things start to pick up and there's a tailwind behind the price of Bitcoin in terms of monetary flows from the Federal Reserve, removing tightening, eventually, at some point in the cycle, they'll go back to quantitative easing. So if everything does go to shit, and let's just say, they go to way too hard on the trade war, they go way too hard firing everybody, and they trigger a bear market, and this ends up crashing really badly, they'll just start pumping money back into the economy. They'll move into quantitative easing again, and everything will just take off from there. And it'll be like the COVID pump. Maybe not as extreme, but I think the markets will bounce and react really hard, and that will obviously cause inflation again, and Bitcoin will aggressively move to the upside once more. Because the number one driver of Bitcoin is liquidity in the marketplace, right? It's very sensitive to monetary policy. So I just kind of feel like, we've had such strong tailwinds for so long now, and we've still managed to get to 100K. What are the possibilities when we finally have a tailwind, from monetary policy behind us? That's why I'm keeping my eye really closely on the DXY. Like, what happens here? How does this end up playing out? Because I think most likely is this going to roll down to here, and we're going to have another golden bull run. Just feels like mid 2021 again, just started a bit earlier this time. Yeah, it does, to be honest. Yeah, well, they've kind of already announced the Bitcoin Federal Reserve, to be honest. It's just now getting it passed. So, like, they had their first digital asset subcommittee the other day. Like, they've got to have all the working groups. And then they put everything together. They talk to everybody who's behind the scenes and try and get everybody's votes and everything like that. I'm pretty sure Texas is going to be the first one, because they're voting really soon. The Senate is voting really soon on if they're going to pass the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Bill. So, like, just Texas passing the Strategic Reserve Bill could see, the market bounce. No, there was somebody else that was rejected. We can go and have a look it up. Yeah, it was just yesterday, 12 hours ago. Landmark move. Texas Senate Banking Committee has unanimously, can't speak, advanced the Senate Bill 21, SB 21, proposing the creation of Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. So drop it in if anyone wants to read that. I can't remember which. It was like Missouri or something like that. It was a bit of a random one that rejected it. I wasn't expecting that one to pass. A bit too much of a oddball state, but it's going to be one of the big ones. It's going to be Texas or it's going to be Florida. We'll pass it first. Oklahoma are really keen as well. It'll be one of like the deep red states because, you know, Republicans want it more than Democrats do, right? So, yeah, well, I think one of those might pass. That'll give a bit of life back to the market narrative because it's all just about the narrative. Like, we're in just massive amounts. We're in just like peak fear right now. Potentially all we needed to do was just fill this CME gap as well. Right, so we'll see how that ends up playing out. But yeah, let's get the fear and greed index up. Yeah, so I just want to say, like, if you haven't traded this like very well, like I've traded this like fucking ass. Probably the worst trading I've had in a couple of years, that's for sure. Like it was a difficult one to trade if you weren't already positioned for downside, expecting this move. And I am kind of questioning, like, without that Bybit hack and, definitely not the two tariff moves for sure. I don't know if I kind of feel like, the larger macroeconomic policy shifts are pushing us in a certain direction, which is to the upside. I have a feeling that this might just end up grinding out here and then pushing. But, when you have three super negative news come out in successive days, like we had Friday night Bybit hack in the middle of the night in Australia, obviously. And then, shortly after that, you get Mexico and Canada tariffs in the middle of the night. Then we wake up the next day and we've got European Union tariffs as well. It's just like, makes it really tough to trade because basically every time we woke up, the market was looking like it was getting ready to bounce and, off key levels as well. Like these weren't the worst setups I've ever seen as well. Like that's why like some of them I was bidding. Let's have a look here. Like, if you like, you get a nice swing failure pattern, like something like that. If you don't bid that, like, yeah, okay, you got stopped out. Like I got stopped out here. But if you're like in a position like this and you get stopped out, you're looking for the rebound back up to the range high through here, like, I just feel like that's like a trade you got to take a sweep of the range low. Like, made so much money over the years taking a trade like that. This one wasn't really a good one, to be honest. Like, okay, yeah, that was range low, and maybe potentially you get a Morningstar reversal off there, but it was fucking piss weak. But yeah, then we also had the sweep of this low here, like that was looking pretty nice. The only problem here is like, started looking nasty when we just couldn't get out of pretty much 89K, right? Like this order block through here. This order block through here. Then, you get the Morningstar, the shooting star reversal there. Starts to look ugly. Then you get break to the new low here. And then it gets real nasty. And then, but like all this, once again, it's happening very late at night for us. And I think this was a really fucking nasty one because I think a lot of people would have taken this trade here, looking for a rebound and trying to get a reclaim happening. And then I think this was when the next lot of tariffs got dropped, which happened again at 2 a.m. our time. And then, we woke up and we had this setup here. I can't remember what, there's a level through here. I've forgotten what the level is. Might be like a long-term VWAP level or something. We're kind of front running it, but yeah. And there's the fib level as well. This one over here. And like, I look at this and I'm just like, if the chart looked like this, right? And I had the opportunity to take that trade and I didn't take it and it ended up rallying from there, I'd feel like an absolute fuckwit because it was like the most obvious setup ever, right? off the 0.618 fib, right? You also have the macro level through there as well, just in front of the previous year value area high. I'm like, I just feel like you just got to take those trades. So like none of these trades, like I don't really regret. It's just like kind of like it's just being a bit shit. The biggest tell was we spent the entire month of February going sideways, and then you had a pretty aggressive break to the downside. Like whenever a market consolidates like this for a long time, and then you have a break in that direction, and that was one of the things I was thinking every single time I took one of those trades through there. But then at the same time, I was like, yeah, but if it fucking bounces from here and reclaims the range low and I don't take this trade, I'm going to regret it. So I just I just pull the trigger because like that's the setup that I trade. It's the major setup that I trade. So it's like, I feel like, you just got to take it. And sometimes it doesn't work out successively a few times in a row and you just have a fucking shit week. But, if you take every one of them that you get and you don't try and you don't be like, oh, but XYZ's happening, I'm not going to take the trade because sometimes you're going to not take a trade like that because XYZ is happening again and it ends up being the bottom and you could have made 50 grand off that trade or something like that, right? So that's kind of the way I think about it. Like sometimes you just got to pull the trigger and, if it doesn't work out, you just take a bit of a loss because, you're trying to trade a reversal setup. Some people wouldn't agree with that, I doubt. Glad you're showing all these setups that have failed. I feel better that I took something a lot. Well, I mean, like they were nice setups, man. Like it's hard to argue with a couple of those setups because, like, a lot of them, like, especially this one that happened this morning, like that easily could have been the bottom, right? You get a instead of a dump candle here, you get a Morningstar reversal. It closes back above here. Bang, we're fucking on. But that's kind of the game. Like if you go in a little bit earlier instead of waiting for the Morningstar reversal, like you sometimes when the market's crashing like this, you just eat shit. But how often does the market dump like this? Not very often. Like this is probably like the worst sell off like this that we've had with like nice setups like that haven't played out multiple times in a row. In a couple of years, it's like, okay, I had one bad week of fucking trading in like 3 years. It's like, but obviously, like, I think the main thing that people are feeling pain about is like the spot issue, right? It's like Solana has been absolutely demoralized. Sui has been smashed as well. A lot of these down, like Sui's down 52%. Right, Solana, this has been absolutely hammered. So one thing with Solana, I think is really important to understand is we have this unlock coming for FTX. And I feel like the few things have happened with Solana, right? Yeah, fucking Trump coin, fuck my life. Which we could be in a completely different space right now if they didn't release the Melania coin. Don't want to go too deep into that, but that fucked the psychology of the market. I feel like there was a big shift around that time. And then, the other side of that is like, meme coin activities really died down a lot. So, Solana is seeing a lot less activity. Then the extra news came out that Pump Fund are going to make their own version of Radium, their own DEX, basic market making DEX. So that obviously caused a lot of panicking around people selling out of Radium. And I think like Solana sold off aggressively with that as well because I felt like a lot of people would probably be investors into Radium and Solana sold their Radium position, but they also decided to sell the Solana position when maybe it was like very obvious time to sell Radium. They sold Ray and then they're like, fuck, I'm selling my Solana position as well. So even though it doesn't really affect Solana, it does affect Solana in terms of people just being like, I'm out of this whole ecosystem, fuck this place. So that's something to sort of consider as well. And then, tomorrow it comes out, 1st of March. I'm pretty sure. Wait, is it? No, when is it? I wish you could zoom in on this thing. I think it is March 1st. I'm pretty sure it's March 1st. There's unlocks. Might say somewhere in the notes. It just says March here, but maybe someone can do a quick little bit of research into that and find out. Oh, here we go. Unlocks upcoming events, March 1st. Yeah. So it's tomorrow, the 1.46 billion. Like, what's Solana's total market cap? Circulating market cap at the moment is $65 billion. So you've got $65 billion circulating market cap at the moment. And 1.4 billion. Like, it's not that big a percentage, but obviously, it's the FTX estate. They're probably going to sell almost all of it. So it's like, okay, everyone's worried and stressed about a 1.46 billion sell, which I don't feel like is that massive. But when the market's already weak and you have that on top of it, it's just like the negative mindset around it. And then I think once this is passed, will definitely help to, see a resurrection of this. But this has been such a hectic sell-off. It's going to need an accumulation range to bounce, I think. I'd be very surprised if this just took off, unless Bitcoin does. But, maybe we end up seeing some sort of accumulation range and then it finally breaks out a little bit later in the year. But I wouldn't be surprised, even if this does come back down to daily val, something like that happens before it finally takes off again. But I'm sure the Solana team will be working really hard once this is out of the way to come up with stuff, once this is finally out of the way and dealt with, to come up with stuff to get, a bullish narrative happening back again for Solana. And that potentially is going to be ETFs. Are going to be one of them. Let's go have a look. I saw this today. Something interesting to have a look at. Van Eck, what's a good ticker idea for a Solana ETP if it gets approved? So, like, what are they hinting at here? Obviously, that they're expecting their Solana ETFs to get approved, right? So, a bit of bullish news that can end up coming back to 190 really fast. So, I wouldn't underestimate this too much once that's cleared out of the way. And I think the Solana team's pretty good at what they do. They'll be working really hard with their PR and marketing departments to get something happening back in the space to reshift the narrative. Because the narrative at the moment for Solana is that it's just a casino and pump fund is extractive and it's just fucked everything. So, they want to be shifting the focus to like real things. I think that's proved its use case, but I think they're going to try and shift the focus to real use cases apart from just being a casino for meme coins. Yeah, so one thing, Tezza, it's definitely been happening is like, like Solana has been pushing, like a lot of coins have been pushing up against Bitcoin. Like they've been more bullish than what Bitcoin has been. And I kind of feel like, that's because they've sold off so much already. Like, Solana's already down 57 fucking percent. Like, how much deeper can this thing go before it finally runs out of sellers, right? So a lot of them are probably ran out of people left to sell. And I think Sui's the same. I feel like there's like not that many people left that want to sell anymore. So, down 52%. Maybe that comes a little bit deeper. I think if this does collapse deeper, 1.8 would be a pretty nice level to be looking to get back in. Which, we have a lot of previous price action here being good levels. And obviously the VWAP through there as well. But I don't know, I'll be watching this like, sorry, I've not slept enough this week. I'll be watching this for a reclaim the previous year value area high and developing value area low, right? And hopefully we can stick it again this time and do one of these things and we get reclaim. But yeah, like I think a lot of people are like, upset or not happy or whatever because they felt like, oh, I missed this run, etc. Blah blah blah. It's all taken off. Like the Sui had an 80% pullback last year over a few months, right? Like, yeah, it's not all the way back down to those kind of lows. It might not get back down there, but a lot of coins have like fully round tripped. So the good news is it's almost like for altcoins anyway. It's almost like we're restarting the cycle. Let's go and have a look at our totals. So total is pretty much back at the previous year VWAP as well. So it's something definitely to keep our eye on. Like watch the reactions to the total market cap VWAP. Total 2. Like Ethereum has just been absolutely savage. Like this chart looks horrific. So like if Bitcoin does break down, I just really hope that we don't do this type of price action because I like to see at least some kind of a rebound back up to the range low. But yeah, fuck, Ethereum just looks so weak. Like it's back to its. No, it's like Bitcoin being back at 30K pretty much. Like that's how savage Ethereum has been. It's pretty brutal, to be honest. Let's go look at others chart. And yeah, so others coming down the previous year value area low. Just want to see how like interacts in this area here, basically. But potentially we're already in the middle of another accumulation range for a lot of these alts. So this might come down, come back up here, and then they finally take off. And it might go longer. It might end up doing this for a while. That'd be something to watch. Just the ping pong between previous year value area low and the VWAP through there. So keep your eye on that. But I mean, obviously for BTC, the play is going to be the reclaim of this range low through here, reclaiming the developing yearly value area low. But it's basically this level, right? Reclaim this level, and we're going to fucking pump again. Until that happens, the market's in a fucking tough position. Like, the market cycle could be over. Because this could easily just be too big of a dump to handle, right? Come all the way down here, then it chops around for a little bit, right? Maybe breaks out, and then rolls over, right? So just need to keep our eye on it for sure. Like rising wedges forming, stuff like that. Need to definitely keep an eye on it. But I think we're back in the clear once we get back above pretty much 92K. Get back above 92K. We're back in the clear. We're clear 100K. I think it's fucking game over for the Bears. And we're coming up here to finally to this target, this 137 target. So, yeah. Any other questions? Kind of see this opportunity right now. That whole greedy when others are fearful has its basis in reality, but probably don't think so when we're going to shoot to 120K overnight either. 100%. Like, you got to be like, look at, we just got it up before. I didn't really go through it though, but the fear and greed index, right? Like have a look at the fear and greed index. Like this is just like absolutely insane levels. Being at 10, go to the, some of the lowest readings that we've ever had. Do you know what I mean? And always typically been good times to buy, right? Always typically been very good times to buy and seeing big market reactions after that. This is the deepest we have been in fucking long time. It's the deepest we've been since June 2022. When was that? That was, back around here. That was June 2020. This period. Yeah, basically when we dumped. So the last time the fear and greed index was this low was when we dumped down into basically the bottom of the market cycle, from the bottom of the bear market. Obviously, where the FTX collapsed, so it was one more leg lower, but yeah, that was like the end of the bear market basically when we moved into the accumulation range. That was that was the only time the fear and greed index has managed to get lower than where we are right now. So yeah, that's something to think about for sure. 6 rep max deadlift at the moment. Man, when I was in Miami, I was fucking deadlifting at this powerlifting gym. I got up to like 200 kgs for 3 reps, but I've had fucking so many injuries since then, so haven't been deadlifting too much. And I don't find that deadlifting really. I play basketball a bit at the moment. I don't really find that deadlifting has really been helping me that much with my basketball skills. I always seem to fucking just injure my back if I'm deadlifting and trying to play. So yeah, back to the skinny male model days, mate. What's your thoughts on why Trump is buying ETH projects? Thought ETH is dead. Maybe they're going to do something with Ethereum, right? So maybe, we're talking about ETH, but I just feel like this chart looks like fucking shit at the moment. Hard to be anything bullish about this because, it had so much opportunity all last year, just really struggled. So, if we drop this level, come back down to here or something like that, and then reclaim, right? Or, we reclaim, get a really nice V action with Bitcoin here, and just shift back into an uptrend, right? Then you could start to get a little bit more stronger bullish on Ethereum. But I just think, like, if you're going to own something that's not Bitcoin, you may as well be in something that's better than Ethereum. Like, I just feel like, what's the point in owning Ethereum? Like, if you're going to own something that's really high market cap and going to move slower, fucking just own Bitcoin because it's most likely going to outperform for like 95% of the cycle. And then at the end of the cycle, when it's really obvious Bitcoin is topping out and Ethereum is going to fucking send, you just rotate back into Ethereum then. And you can get up the ETH BTC chart, which we can do. Oh, I forgot the name of my ETH BTC chart. Oh, why won't it come up? Right, when this finally forms into some sort of an uptrend, which is probably going to take fucking ages, to be honest. Right, like this might need to go like this for a while, right? Until we finally get this sort of action here, where Ethereum finally starts outperforming Bitcoin. We can break this downtrend line here. Then you can sort of think about owning a decent amount of Ethereum. But I'm just like, why would you own Ethereum when you just own Bitcoin? If you want to be in that type of an asset, like a top 2, 3, 4, 5 asset, you're better off just owning Bitcoin, Solana, and Sui, because I feel like Solana and Sui have way more potential for massive upside that's going to outperform Ethereum. But who knows? It's hard to tell. Maybe they're buying so much Ethereum because Trump and the team have plans to use Ethereum for a voting system, to ensure that you have actual like real votes going through instead of you have an uncorruptible voting system, an unriggable voting system. Maybe they're going to put the Treasury Reserve on Ethereum and use the Ethereum blockchain for to run the Treasury allocations from, so you can track everything. Maybe they're going to use it for some actual stuff inside the government, and maybe they know that, and maybe that's why they're buying so much Ethereum, or maybe they're just buying it because it's the second highest market cap, and maybe they're just fucking retard crypto people that ETH maxis for some reason. Like maybe that's just the cult that they're stuck in, so they're buying heaps of it. So we're holding Solana, selling off and rebuying on this event tomorrow. I think the sell-off's already happened, so it'll probably be like a thing where the event happens and the market bounces afterwards. Mark G, get your question out, brother. I see you typing down there, mate. If I missed anybody's question, I know there's probably a bunch of questions that I didn't get to that were asked earlier. But grab myself another beer. It's been a day. Definitely. Do you have any pointers to catch potential bear moves? Yeah, so like obviously the main one that we kind of missed, and I had talked about this a few times that you know this was an upthrust, but it was kind of like a little bit. I don't know. I just had a bit of trouble selling this one because it did catch me off guard, but I should have been a bit more onto it with like Trump's going so heavy on the tariffs. I wasn't sure if he was only just going to use tariffs as a threat, right? So tariffs just stay a threat, the market does this. Tariffs get implemented, the market does this, right? That's basically the story here. If you didn't really fully catch it just yet, right? So the biggest tell for a bearish reversal going from it being an uptrend to a downtrend is you get an SFP, but this was like a pretty weak, like you just got one SFP. If we had got like a bit of a heavier upthrust, again like this, and you got two attempts to break out of the high, and then it rolled over. But I honestly just think like most of it's just coming from people going risk off because they're afraid of Trump's policies. Massive reduction in government spending on actual government employees, so unemployment's going to go up, and they're trying to do, basically doing like fiscal austerity with the Doge program. They're cutting hundreds of billions of dollars of government spending. And I think people are worried that that's not going to flow through the economy. But I think what they're going to do is they're going to take that money and they're going to put it into the economy, into more useful spaces instead of sending it to fucking Algeria, Kazakhstan, Nigeria, Afghanistan for DEI, women's studies programs and just more useless shit like fucking the Sesame Street program for Iraq, trying to turn the Taliban gay. Like, obviously all that money is getting funneled back to politicians. Like one just came out today, one of the guys they had on like the January 6th thing. I'm probably going to get banned on YouTube for saying this stuff, but we might not have to upload this to YouTube. But yeah, he got done. It was on X. He got done. Supposedly USAID was sending him $160 million or something crazy like that. I mean, I have to fact check that to be 100% sure, but obviously there's a whole heap of fraud going on. So spending money like that, it's not very inducive to growth, and it doesn't get like in economics, $1 into the economy is not equal depending on where you put it. Because that will circulate through multiple different spaces and get taxed on a certain amount of different times and generate GDP. So like the whole idea is like the where you allocate funds. If you allocate funds to good places, you're gonna get more growth out of the economy. If you allocate funds to bad places like DEI programs in fucking the Middle East, it's probably not going to help your economy grow very much. So the return that you get from that capital invested by the government is really low compared to where I think they're going to put capital investment, because Elon Musk is probably the greatest capital allocator of all time that we've ever seen in the history of the entire fucking universe. No one allocates capital better than that guy, right? So, with his opinions on where they should maybe be spending some of this money, and obviously Trump is a pretty good capital allocator as well. I think, between them and the rest of the cabinet, they're going to be putting money into much better places than LGBTQ Sesame Street in Iraq, and they're going to help to grow the US economy, which then is going to increase tax revenues and monetary velocity, and grow that GDP, and that's where they shrink the deficit from. And I think just having impact on the deficit, I think that's more long-term bullish anyway. So that's why they're sort of having the idea of short-term pain for long-term gain. It's just how much is the pain going to be short-term? Is the real question. What do they do with the taxes that they're going to be raising from these tariffs? Is that going to go into the sovereign wealth fund? The other thing I think that's hanging over the market a little bit as well, scaring a few things, is what's going on with the fucking gold in Fort Knox. Is that gold actually there? Because if that gold's not actually there, could cause a few problems. Exactly. SSB. Yeah, $50 million for condoms in Gaza, for fuck me. So yeah, one of the reasons why I think I didn't trade this that well is because I was expecting, if this was going to be a distribution, usually you get more of a this type of action here, whereas obviously this ended up playing out as a bear flag, but it was sort of chopped sideways. And, maybe if we didn't have, it wouldn't be anywhere nearly as bad if we didn't have the Bybit nuke happened perfectly at the wrong time as we were trying to reclaim 100K. Yeah, you have this sideways chop through here. Normally, you're going to see something a little bit more like that. And when I get one of those, I find it a little bit easier. If we had have got a nice rising wedge here, that would have been really fucking obvious that was going to be a distribution. We kind of didn't really get that. So I was kind of still hoping that this was the spring here, and this is just going to round up and pump, especially because we're starting to see global liquidity increase, and all the other stuff kind of happening, hoping that we would get some more bullish narratives come through, but obviously didn't happen. And we got the triple very bearish news one after the other. And obviously, I think when that bearish news came out, someone was like, all right, let's go fill this CME gap. So let's see how that ends up playing out. But yeah, I'd love to see it close by this previous year value area high. Where should you set your fib levels, right? So you either want to go from this move here to that move there. Is basically, I'll show you on the other chart too. So it's you want to go from the low, right? So this point here to, I like to do the first high of the consolidation range, because this is just an up thrust, this is, up thrust SFP type thing. And so that's basically the move, the impulsive move that we've had, right? And that's why I was kind of hoping that we'd get the bounce of 0.618 here as well. Obviously, that's failed. The other place that you can put this would be right down the bottom here. And then, that sort of makes a little bit more sense because it's the entire move and it lines up perfectly, with the previous high back here. CME gets filled. Even if we go might end up doing something like that. Yeah, that does line up very nicely with the previous highs. So yeah, I think one of the other reasons why it's been hard to trade is because, we've sort of got accustomed to buying big sell-offs, especially around near the range low. If we look at this, every time we dipped near the range low, we had a really nice reaction off it pretty much the entire time. So it's almost like the last entire pretty much a year. Every time we've dipped down towards a range low, it's been an amazing buying opportunity. So for an entire 12 months, every time you bought the range low, it's been an epic buying opportunity. And then all of a sudden you buy the range low and just get wrecked 3 times in a row. So hopefully that makes you feel a little bit better, Kit, because we've kind of been trained to bid the range low for the last 12 months. It's worked every single time. So, it worked 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of a little bit there. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 in here, that intra range. So 16 times, failed 3 times. I'll take those odds. So, Lesky, does that make sense for how to set up your fibs from there? But I think this is the correct setting. I was probably getting a bit greedy running this one, but potentially, I think they're both correct, to be honest. Like, you can run it from wherever, but this is obviously the tighter fib for the last impulsive move. But like, this is a bit more of like a macro. This is the entire uptrend through here, right? I hate trading view. Why do they move the arrows? Right? That's more of that entire move up, which is a pretty fucking big move if you think about it. Like, price went from 52K to 110. It's a 107% move. And now, we're coming back to hit the 0.618 on that move. It's not really like that, to me, is not like end of the bull market kind of shit. You have a 100% move up and then you have a move back to the 618. Now, I will say, if we fucking lose a 0.618 of this move here, we're in a lot of fucking trouble. It should not drop below 73K, pretty much. Can come below on a wick, but I do not want to see closing below there. Like, if it does, I'll probably start to go very heavily risk off. But I just doubt that it'll go all the way down there without at least bouncing. Like, it probably will go. If it does get down there, it'll probably bounce really aggressively and then get something like that. All right. Hope that makes sense. New here. What a time to come on, Bob. I mean, for the new people, it's actually pretty good because if we're just fucking pumping, it was, toward, we're getting just like what it was last cycle. We're kind of towards the top of the entire market cycle. And, we had alt season for a little bit. And so if you're coming in those periods, like, you're kind of fucked. Like, you guys still have amazing opportunity. Like, Ethereum is basically, and it's fucking still in its accumulation range. It's come all the way back to its accumulation range. So, like, you're basically at the market cycle low on Ethereum at the moment. Sui's had a massive pullback. Solana is down. What is it? Oh, it's down. Solana. Jesus. Can't even fit on. It's down so bad I can't even fit on the fucking screen. The Solana's down 60%. Go look at some altcoins. Anyone want to look at some altcoins? Like, obviously they're all fucked. I think one thing that's a bit of an anomaly at the moment is Litecoin. It's like just been going sideways and does not want to sell off. So there's something happening with Litecoin, that's for sure. I think keep our eyes on that. I think a lot of people, especially on Twitter, have been talking about ETF coming for Litecoin. Like Jupiter's all the way back down. Very, very, like, Jupiter's like fucking, it's down the lows. Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of stuff is like fully round tripped, like all the way back. Like, peak, it's making new lows. LDO is at the lows. FET fully fucking round tripped. So, like honestly, we're almost going into a period again now where, like, it's a lot of these altcoins for sure. They're going to have to go back into accumulation range for a few months, and I even probably hate to say it, a lot of them probably won't break out and go on a big run like what we had here with FET last year, maybe until the end of this year. Like, it might be like October. These might struggle and just go through accumulation ranges. This might go just like this. Finally break out in October and then go on a real fucking big run in Q4. So, like, people who are just like new coming into the group, I think there's heaps of opportunity. It's only painful for people that rode this shit all the way back up and thought it was going to chop sideways and continue and pump again, and it's round tripped everything. Like, everybody's in a lot of pain because they've all round tripped their bags. It's been a very strange cycle because, like, we know we moved very early, hit the all-time high super early, um, because we had the ETFs sort of like thrown off the cycle a little bit. We're also in quantitative tightening at the moment, so like things this cycle are just so much different on so many levels to everything else. Like, so we sort of like overshot, my market map, and now we're sort of like breaking correlation with that now, and it's the pump has stopped, and that's, I think, just down to Trump's policies and him wanting to run tariffs. And we're going to have a bit of pain first up, but that pain leads to lowering interest rates, easing financial conditions, injecting capital, and eventually it leads to quantitative easing, which all leads to, I think, a longer market cycle, and potentially this ends up pushing into 2026, midway or late 2026, instead of, we top at the end of 2025. But let's see how we end up playing out. Typically, the rule for Bitcoin is it does come back and hit the 0.618 a lot, guys. Like a fucking lot. Okay, it comes back and hits the 0.618 a lot. Go back and have a look on your market trends. But over the last couple of years, the 0.618, it gets hit all the fucking time, and then the bull market continues. But you don't get daily trading underneath the 0.618, and then the bull market continues. So go and have a look at that. It'd be a good one for you guys to back test anyway. But yeah, I'm definitely come back down to here. Like, I said in a YouTube video the other day, worst case scenario, we come back to 71K, and that would be a pretty amazing opportunity. I think even, what's his name? Tom. I've forgotten his name. Tom from, oh my God, what's his name? I gotta get him up. Tom Lee. This guy here, head of research for Fundstrat. He was saying, he's like, I don't know if Bitcoin's going to get down that deep. He's like, but if it does, that's an amazing buying opportunity. So yeah, something to think about anyway. Dixo, you said, is this downtrend time frame of nearly 3 months typical in late stage of the bull market? Not sure what you mean by that. Exactly. Downtrend time frame of nearly 3 months. You're talking about kind of being like, we only really started downtrend just the other day, like, because we were going sideways. But yeah, we have had a lot of big pullbacks like this before. Like, this isn't like for Bitcoin to pull back 30%. It's pretty fucking standard. It's very, very standard for Bitcoin to have a 30% pullback. Even the price cycle missed this. If this is the top, yeah, I just don't think it's good. If this is the top, it means that the Nasdaq and SPX 500 are about to fucking nuke, and we're going to go into like a bear market. And the Federal Reserve just has all they have to do is stop taking money out of the economy and start putting it back in, and the market will instantly start to pump. So it's like we're so far, I think, from a bear market. Like the bear market was 2022. Like this was the bear market, This is the bear market. They reset all their levers. Interest rates got put up. Interest rates are fucking high at the moment. Very, very restrictive. Like, financial conditions have been very restrictive for a long time. Stopping quantitative tightening, lowering interest rates, starting quantitative easing. Even just getting the dollar down is going to be absolutely huge. So yeah, all things to think about. Levers that can be pulled to stop it from dumping, because they don't want the markets to dump because it's going to lead to massive unemployment, and they're already firing fucking 80% of the government as well. So they can't have 80% of the government being fired and then corporate Wall Street all going broke at the same time as well. Like, yeah, okay, they might get the deficit down, but they're going to lose so much GDP. Like they have to get growth as well. Like that's I think everybody's missing. It's like they're going to reduce government spending, but they're also going to stimulate massive amounts of growth. Stimulating massive amounts of growth, um, leads to the market going up. Yeah, OM's been great. Um, OM's been just absolutely fucking elite. So thanks to Black Widow for getting us onto that one. Uh, yeah, I mean, it just looks strong. So like when Bitcoin finally bounces, this is definitely one to keep your eyes on because like you want to be looking at the projects that stay strong when the market's super weak, right? So this could easily just continue to chop sideways. I'd just be watching it carefully. Reclaiming the developing value area high could lead to a rotation down value area low VWAP, right? With everything else being absolutely horrifically weak, that could eventually happen if Bitcoin does get too bearish. So keep an eye on that. And then we have, C. It's trying to reclaim the value area low, right? If Bitcoin can bounce today, maybe that holds the value area low, and then that's an entry, And then this ends up being like some sort of a wick stop loss below there. And I'll probably try and run that all the way back up to here, to be honest. And 19 R trade on that, to be honest. Or even back to the previous year value area high could happen. But I would be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these alts end up going into accumulation ranges. And they got to do something like this before they bounce. Okay, something to think about. Yeah, so I'm guessing MRK. I'm guessing your name's Mark. I'm just going to keep calling you Mark GC. um, yeah, so with the government workers, they're actually paying them for 8 months. So they're just not going to be going to work. They're still going to be getting paid for 8 months. It's like you've got 8 months to go and find something else to do that's more productive than working for the government. Because people working for it's not a good allocation of capital. They want to be allocating capital into corporate. They want those people in America that are working for the government doing something for a business that helps that business grow and make more money and sell more products. And they can make a better income as well. And all this sort of stuff happens. And it's not just them relying on taxpayer money, fucking doing fuck all day, wasting their life working a government job, not really achieving anything, not actually doing anything to help anybody. So, you go from weak allocation of capital to strong allocation of capital. That stimulates growth in the economy, more GDP, more tax revenues. They make more money. The debt comes down. Let's go look at Solana then. 4 hour. I reckon the 4 hour. I mean, like, Solana actually looks all right here, to be honest. Like, this looks like 3 pushes to a low. Right, 1, 2, 3. Morningstar reversal coming in pretty nice here. Closing back above here. Now, I don't want to jinx it because there's been a lot of nice looking things and that just absolutely ate shit. But let's see how this ends up playing out, hey? I wouldn't be surprised if this came back and tested 114, just where the value area low is. But yeah, I just thought sweeping this low, which is the shoulder point of the inverse head and shoulders, the high took this trade last year. It was an epic trade to take. Maybe it needs to sweep. Maybe they're not going to be happy until they get this sweep down here. I don't know. But yeah, previous year value area low, obviously going to be a strong spot to try and look to get in. But it kind of reminds me of this a bit. You know? Like 1, 2, 3, big SFP down the bottom. Oh, excuse me. I mean, like if you look at the daily, like this daily can close as a pin bar, looks something like this, and we look at all the trap traders in below this low. Like that's going to look pretty nice. Basically, everything is just completely eating shit, and I think the reason why is because we're in quantitative tightening still, and the ISM is only just coming out of a bear market, right? And if we go and look at our altcoin strength versus the ISM, it fucking pretty much matches it perfectly. But the ISM obviously has the lead time here on it. So next few months, altcoins could start taking off and starting to catch up with manufacturing. If manufacturing continues to lead, which if you look like the next orders, it does look like, let me see if I can get it up. So we can see new orders here is at 55, which means that the ISM reading this one here, which is giving us just above 50, next month is going to be up here at 55, which is basically where this arrow is, right? And that's really starting to lead altcoins up again, which, if we look back into our previous market cycles, when ISM really started taking off is when the altcoins really took off as well. So something to think about there as also. Yeah, look, potentially market manipulation. Somebody big wanted to come down and get the CME gap filled. Let's see how it ends up playing out. I mean, if it just bounces out of the CME gap, it's hard to say it's not as much as market manipulation to get that filled. But yeah, I would like, this is not a bad 4-hour candle here. Let's see what New York gives us tonight. But yeah, if we can close it daily on top of the previous year value area high, would be nice. Tau, yeah, Tau's been doing well too. I mean, it was looking great until fucking start of the week, and we, basically just rejected off the yearly value area high, and unfortunately, it's looking pretty weak right now. Could be a late night, or you can just wake up tomorrow morning and see what's happened. When is everyone going to ape into Toshi? Watching the charts through the day, lots of alts are eager to go up. But yeah, that's the thing that's been killing us. A lot of alts, even like yesterday. That's why I thought we were going to bottom. That's why I do feel like Bitcoin's being manipulated down because, and then maybe it's just to hit that CME gap by a major market maker got fucked on that CME gap and they just wanted to close it. Because a lot of alts looked like they were trying to bottom and they were sick, absolutely done. Like everybody that was going to sell has sold, and the alts were trying to bounce, and then Bitcoin just kept on going lower. Like a couple of times we had one of the days I remember we had Sui and Solana and a couple of other alt, a lot of alts were quite green, and then Bitcoin's just down 5%. Everything else is green. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? This is something is not adding up at the moment. So yeah, that was. You don't see that very often, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, Toshi's listed on Coinbase. Oh, excuse me. Fucking Millennials, maybe? Yeah, there we go. So this one's actually been around for a while. And obviously it had a massive pump off the back of, hey, it's going to list on Coinbase. Fucking 2,000% pump. And yeah, unfortunately, it's looking nasty. It's got like no volume in here. It's been on spot being X for ages. I've bought it and sold it heaps of times. Trying to get a chart, but MEXC is probably going to be the best one. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, probably just look to get that off the VWAP. Hey, yeah, it might be able to hold these highs through here. Like, this is pretty key support and resistance for like, solid flag here, and then flipped it into support, and then absolutely just sent. So this is definitely a potential reversal point if BTC can stop dumping, but it just looks like another one's just been bleeding out for ages. I'm on a 4 hour here. I thought it was on daily. Yes, it's been pretty much bleeding out since the 26th of Jan. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like, daily time frame. Somewhere in here, I reckon, for Toshi. And then, it's just the kind of thing like you just got to hold it and wait for it to pump again next. And then, it's either go to zero or you're holding it, waiting for it to pump, and it eventually pumps and you take profit on it. Check out Velo. I mean, it was doing nice until, when was this? Fucking, yeah, 16th of January. Unfortunately. Yeah, so it came up, hit previous year value high. And yeah, got nuked pretty hard. But yeah, I mean, for its bear market, it's actually up 1,500% there. This has obviously had massive, massive amounts of liquidation. Jesus Christ. Go. So a little trick. I mean, I've shown guys a lot of this. Shown this a few times, but it's just go and look at the price, and then also look at the market cap. Just, yeah, there you go. So the price was only as hectic at what it was. So this chart, you kind of need to like only focus on this part here. Post, the added liquidation of the unlocks, and then sort of think about it like, have they done enough? I mean, it's never fucking getting back up here. Let's be honest. They must have added so many fucking coins. I'd love to see the unlock schedule. I'm surprised that they don't like CoinGecko and stuff like that don't have the unlock schedules on here. Market cap, what's that? 100 million, 113 million. Yeah, that's horrible. But yeah, 250 mil market cap. Not bad. If we'll find out. Fuck, they still only got 68% unlocked as well. Hmm. Oh, I gotta sign in to see the schedule. It's a bit annoying, but give me a second. So yeah, yeah, like it was very. They didn't have a lot being unlocked when it first went live. That's why the chart looks like what it does. And it obviously got repriced, but yeah, still has a fair bit to go in its unlocks. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm not the hugest. Not the hugest fan of this, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, like maybe once all unlocks are finished, maybe it takes off. There's been a narrative shift. Alts get a bit of a run again later on in the cycle. It still looks like maybe it's still only going sideways in its accumulation range again. Oh, I mean, supposedly Peak is a really good project. I don't know anything about Plume, so I just feel like all alts, they're just all one trade. So, once the ISM fucking gets back up to, 60 later on in this year and next year, probably alts are going to start fucking pumping. And Global M2, I feel like is just going to keep on going. Like once Global M2 starts making new highs, right? Once this starts taking off and making new highs, I think the narrative is going to shift. So that's what you need to be watching for. Like I think I don't really I know a lot of people like to get into the nitty gritty about different alts and all this sort of stuff, but for me, I don't know. I just feel like they're all one trade. You rotate through them when it's the right time, when the markets are pumping. We're just not there yet. Like we're still too early. Like we're still in like the tightening phase. Like the fucking financial conditions, the Federal Reserve still has its fucking hands firmly grasped around the neck of the markets and choking them slowly to death. So like you got to think about it like that. Like when they haven't even let go yet. So like let alone let go and then fucking put them on their shoulders and start running. Like that's the difference between quantitative easing and quantitative tightening. At the moment, quantitative tightening is going to end in the next couple of months, though. I think with if we do start to have a little bit more shaky period, the market starts to sell off a little bit more because of these tariff scares and everything like that, and they start to feel the effects of the unemployment going up because of what's happening with Doge. Then they're going to end quantitative tightening earlier. But if not, it's going to finish at the end in the middle of the year. And also, Jerome Powell's going to get fired, and Trump will replace him. His term is up in the middle of the year anyway. Trump will put somebody in who's a Republican, and wants to do what Trump wants, I think, and which will be to help the markets move. When is next FOMC? Better have a look. FOMC calendar. '18, 19th of March. So it's kind of a little bit away still. Kind of is a little bit away. So, yeah. But guys, my voice is fucked from talking nonstop for the last, I don't even know how long we went on, 2 hours. Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone, for jumping on. It's been awesome. Hopefully, I gave you guys some info that helps. But yeah, I think like keep your eye on the DXY, keep your eye on Global M2. Watch the others chart as well. Like if we sweep this low or go into an accumulation range here, could be good entries. Keep your eye on the SPX 500 and the NASDAQ, especially for the 200 daily moving average. With Bitcoin specifically, you want to be watching to see if we can hold the previous year value area high by tomorrow morning. And then obviously, we've got to see where the weekly ends up closing. If we do come down, where's the chart? Maybe this is a chart. If we do come down to hit, the 0.618, sort of like our golden target range between the 618 and the 0.66, which is also the previous year value area. Sorry, the previous high from last year, the previous all-time high. The 71 or 72K really is the level. That's the level that Tom Lee said to fucking bid with everything you've got. So, I think if we do go down there, we don't bounce off here. It is a little bit more bearish, obviously going deeper, or we might need to put in some sort of I don't know, something like that. And it might take the next couple of months to get out of it. But let's see what happens. Even if it is a range, we'll be able to ping each side of the range again. Like, I actually made a fair bit of money just playing the range through here. It was pretty nice. But, just pinging either side of the range. But, yeah, I just think once we get back above 92K, it's fucking game on for the market to absolutely send again. But until then, it is going to be a lot more touch and go. And, I'll be a bit more concerned about potentially tops being in, especially if we do something like this. Okay, that'd be the big tell. Some sort of a rising wedge here or just that time action. All right. Thanks a lot for tuning in, guys. See you all next time.